Melee in Remnant 2 doesn't get a lot of love, and that's a shame because Melee has had a big overhaul since the original, and its weapons are among some of the most unique and satisfying in the game. We'll be going over the 3 absolute best melee weapons in the game. I say best because all the footage you're seeing was shot in Apocalypse mode, so to even survive at melee range there is nothing shy of a miracle. We'll be featuring them in order of awesomeness, so they'll only get better as we go along. Our first weapon is extremely important to get, not just because of its unique modifier, but because it's a prerequisite to get a bunch of other items in the game. The Dreamcatcher is one of the most visually striking melee weapons in the game. I love pairing it with the Moonbow and the Fey Royal Armor for that real mystical elven vibe. The weapon itself is also extremely useful when managing large mobs because of its exceptionally unique modifier. After dealing 750 damage, a charge attack will release a Dreamwave, flying 20 meters outward, applying slow to all enemies for 10 seconds, and granting a stack of Reverie for each enemy affected. Each stack grants plus 2% to all damage and plus 2% movement speed, lasting for 15 seconds. I'm unaware of there being a stack cap for this, and it can get absolutely wild when you're dealing with large groups of adds. Not only is it unbelievably useful in managing large mobs, but there is something extremely satisfying about watching your opponents stuck in slow motion while you go to town on their HP. This is very useful because I wouldn't say that the Dreamcatcher is one of the highest damage melee weapons in the game, so it's really more about being strategic. The biggest caveat with the Dreamcatcher is that it has no way to attack flying enemies, or no real ranged component in general. It more than makes up for this, however, by allowing you to enter the dreams of key NPCs, extract consumables, and enter very cool dream states to find crafting materials for new items. The Dreamcatcher is a must-have for this reason. You get the Dreamcatcher by running through the Morrow Parish Shard of Lasomme and feeding the completed Nightweaver stone dolls to the Nightweaver's web. Melee limitations are no issue to our next weapon though, which overcomes Dreamcatcher's major shortfalls. The Atom Splitter is one of the most visually stunning weapons in the game. The Drazier refer to it as a giant tool for splitting heavy rocks, but that doesn't mean it won't work equally well for splitting your enemies. The drawcard of the Atom Splitter, other than the huge damage of two-handed swords, is its very unique mod ability. On a neutral evade attack, the Atom Splitter achieves nuclear fission, releasing a wave of charged particles dealing 630 damage to targets within 20 meters. Yes, that's right, it's actually a ranged weapon. You can use this attack to hit aerial foes alongside those at a distance. But that isn't all. Its massive advantage is that the attack literally has wall hack, so you can hit enemies through obstacles. This can be massive when trying to manage mobs or cheese otherwise difficult enemies. Watching this giant Final Fantasy-esque weapon pulsing with shards of lightning always gets me excited about combat. You find the Atom Splitter on a random side dungeon encounter in Neyrud, which has giant robotic arms shifting around lines of stasis pods, very reminiscent of the Matrix. At a key moment, you can actually jump on a section that the arms lift up and use that to access a broken catwalk which houses the Atom Splitter. Just remember that you're playing Remnant 2 and expect to die needlessly a few times due to janky movement. Now while the Atom Splitter is good, very good even, our next sword is the very best melee weapon in the entire game, and fittingly, to unlock it, you have to complete an entire campaign playthrough in the dreaded Apocalypse mode. Fortunately, something that's much easier to do is join us as a subscriber. If you'd believe, only 1% of viewers are subbed to the channel, which is fine, we're still super new, so it's great news and we love you guys. But we're growing super fast and would love to have you on board for all the future Remnant 2 content. Speaking of, the infamous World's Edge is the pinnacle melee experience in Remnant 2. As much a ranged weapon as a sword, it negates all the disadvantages of both the Dreamcatcher and the Atom Splitter. Every single charged attack launches a Horizon Strike, which is a wide horizontal projectile that penetrates enemies, travels a surprising distance, while doing a metric ton of damage, and still being able to trigger weak points. Like the Atom Splitter, its melee projectile has wall hack, so you can literally obliterate enemies while safely out of range. The cool thing is that you don't need to trigger it with the awkward neutral evade attack, but can literally just spam regular charged attacks instead. The World's Edge devastates adds, completely decapitating most regular enemies and ragdolling the rest. It's also extremely powerful against elites and aberrations, basically causing most of them to get stagger locked as you pummel them into submission. Well worth the painful grind through the dreaded apocalypse mode. Visually, it also reminds me of something, but I can't quite put my finger on it. The only issue, and this seems more like a hit registration bug, is that weak point hits don't always trigger as they should, very obviously noticeable when attacking the cute little stone guys in the labyrinth. Now, we're not actually done. This was a bit of a trick list, because see, there was a runner-up for best melee weapon in Remnant 2, and if it wasn't for the aerial ability, this would actually be my personal favorite sword in the game. In fact, against ground targets, it is the best. The Stonebreaker is a sword that we've featured before in this video and the card above. It's much easier to get than the World's Edge, and will give you the Pinnacle ground target melee experience if you fancy playing Remnant 2 that way. Its fault line charged attack fires off ground-based shockwaves which deal massive damage. I'm not sure if it's part of a bug or a feature, but I could swear they've triggered multiple hits on enemies for me. The amount of damage you can put out with this thing and the stagger potential is undeniable. It makes you feel like some ridiculous JRPG protagonist, or Sauron in the opening scene of Lord of the Rings. Its efficacy against adds, elites, and aberrations is without question. Were it not for its complete inability to target aerial enemies, I would actually prefer it to the World's Edge, and this is what gives it the status of honorable runner-up to best melee weapon in Remnant 2. But what are your favorites? Did I miss anything that should have gone into the top 3? Let me know, and I'll see you next time.